Well, hi Shannon. Thanks for coming to see me today. I know that it could be a little bit uh, uncomfortable to meet with a therapist over Zoom, so I do appreciate you being willing to meet. We had a good phone call the other day, and so as I explained to you, all we're going to be doing in this session is just going to basically do an intake assessment. So I'm just going to ask you some questions just to get more of an understanding of what your needs are and how best that I can assist you with your treatment journey. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Good. I will just let you know that anything that you do share with me is confidential. And the only time that I need to break confidentiality is in a few situations. So if you are hurting somebody else or planning to hurt yourself, or if there's another vulnerable population in your household that's been affected, I will need to break that confidentiality. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yep,
Okay,
sounds
cool.
good.
And it's not something that I would ever do behind your back. I'd always involve you in that process as well.
Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. Well, could you just start by telling me a little bit about why you reached out to me and what some of the, I guess, problems that you're facing are?
Yeah. So I've been feeling really depressed lately, just really down. I just broke up with my girlfriend and I just feel like some of the previous thoughts or habits or things like that are kind of coming back to me and I just am kind of wanting to get ahead of things. Um, so it doesn't become like a big issue, I guess.
Oh, that's really good. I'm sorry that you went through that. I know that breakups can be really hard, but it sounds like you're very self-aware and acknowledging that you want to get some help before
Yeah.
it gets out of control.
Yeah, for sure.
So, how are some of those? So, with that challenge that's been going on, what's making you aware that um, things maybe aren't the best, or that you're feeling maybe mentally not the best?
Um, Yeah, I previously I've used drugs as a coping mechanism when things get really hard. And so
Yeah.
I'm having some of those thoughts or urges. Um, I have a lot of I feel like a lot of my insecurities are kind of rooted in that um fear of feeling like I'm a failure or not enough. And those thoughts I feel like are becoming more disturbing or louder, harder to kind of control or to put off, I guess. And yeah, I'm just worried about relapsing and really wanting to make sure that that's not the path that this goes this time.
Right. Okay. Thank you for sharing. I know that can be hard to kind of open up and be vulnerable. Um, have you used drugs recently at all, or is it just more the feeling and the urges to turn back to that after the breakup?
Just more the urges. I mean, I've had drinks with friends or something if I'm out, but before I was using cocaine really regularly and I haven't turned to that yet. Just more of those thoughts and urges.
Right. Okay. And how long ago was the breakup?
It was a month ago.
A month, so recent.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
recent. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other events or any other things that are coming up for you as the reason that you wanted to engage in therapy?
Um, yeah, I mean, some of it I've dealt with before, in previous treatment, but I went through a really difficult period of time where my uncle died by suicide when I was helping to take care of him. And then 3 years after that, his son, my cousin, also died by suicide. Um, so that's what initially had triggered a lot of the drug use.
Right.
And so I feel like I dealt with, a lot of that when I was um, in treatment, but uh, maybe some of those, I feel like that's sometimes tied to that thought of feeling like I can't do things right or that I'm not there for people or things like that.
Yeah. Wow, Shannon, you've had some big things happen in your life, and I think you're very right that there would be some carryover with all of that stuff linked together, and those feelings of not being there for people and feelings of failure. So there's definitely some things there that we can work on together in treatment. I appreciate you coming to this session today and just giving me a little bit of understanding about where you're at. And we'll continue to work through the steps of putting together a treatment plan and then engaging in therapy. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable, and I look forward to getting to know you more and working with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mark. How are you feeling a little bit today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling all right. A little bit nervous about coming back to therapy, but feeling all right.
Well, I'm glad you came back. Today is going to be a little bit more of just some initial questions, kind of like the assessment form, but more of us creating a treatment plan together. So just, just some general questions based off of what you had said in the original intake. What are some of the presenting problems that you feel in your own words?
Yeah, so I think just like feeling really like down and lonely, just feeling inadequate. I was the breakup was pretty rough. And as I said in the intake, like I think it's linked to other things that have happened in my life that I thought that I'd worked through, but it's a lot of stuff is coming up. And so, I'm sleeping a lot. I don't go out as much as I used to anymore. I just kind of stay at home and keep to myself, isolated.
Mhm. Yeah, and that thank you for summarizing that for me pretty well. Kind of with going with that, what are some of the goals you're wanting with therapy based off of these, with not sleeping a lot and going through this breakup?
I think that's a really, really good question. I never really thought about that. Probably just to feel more like myself and that my emotions,
Mhm.
are not like so dramatic all the time, that I'm just more even keeled, and that I just regain some of that confidence back in who I am.
Definitely. What are these emotions that you're kind of not really willing to experience right now since going through all of this?
I think that's the biggest one is just feeling like a failure, like that I can't
Mhm.
do anything, like I can't maintain a relationship, or that I'm not good enough. And that's scary for me, those symptoms, because then that is in the past. I've kind of self-medicated with using cocaine. So it's kind of scary a little bit for me.
Yeah, that does sound very scary. And kind of as you were talking, it sounded like there were some of these memories and thought processes that you were kind of going through that you also weren't really, that maybe you have gone through, but you're not wanting to experience. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Like, yeah, it's hard to talk about. Like, it's hard. I don't want to experience it. So yeah, that's why I'm isolating more and keeping it to myself.
Yeah. Are there, so what are the like things you do to avoid these experiences? So you mentioned before that you used to go use cocaine and stuff, but now what are some other like maybe behavioral avoidances you do?
Behavioral avoidances.
Yeah, like how do you behave or
Hmm.
how do you do things to not avoid these thoughts and memories and emotions?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I've stopped doing activities that I would normally do, like skiing. So I'm not doing the things that would normally make me feel happier anyway. I'm actually avoiding the things that make me happy by staying home and being isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So um what are these things that you're wanting to kind of re put back into your life and willing to try and get to a point where you're able to feel happy with them?
Yeah, I definitely.
How would you know if I had to ask, how would you know that you were starting to feel that again where you wanted to do it?
Just would have the motivation and the desire to want to do those things. Like if I started feeling like excited to go skiing, or
Mhm.
to spend time with friends and go out for dinner, like if I had that desire, that's how I would know that I'm doing better.
Good. I like those. Well, based off of kind of what you've given me, and I really appreciate the information you have given me throughout this. I know they're not always easy. There are a lot of strengths that you've provided, and some of these are, the first step of coming to therapy and continuing to come and being willing to open up and allow yourself to talk about these harder things. I think what our initial plan is to event our goals that you kind of set for yourself will kind of work throughout therapy of less isolation and kind of allowing yourself to feel these emotions, thoughts, and memories that you're kind of avoiding to
Okay.
get you to feel happy again and do those activities. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. Well, then I will see you next week. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mark, good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
How are you feeling after our last session where we went through a treatment plan together?
Yeah, I felt good. It was nice to, I guess, share some of the things that I'm going through. I did notice afterwards though, because we talked a little bit about avoidance and avoiding behaviors, that I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed with emotion. But it was good to do that check-in and treatment plan.
Yeah, I appreciate you telling me that. Not all therapy is going to be a straight uphill climb, right? We might have some offsets and some putbacks, but I appreciate you telling me those. We'll get through those together.
Thanks.
What I'm thinking in your treatment, I want to engage you in a specific kind of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. And you mentioned you have been in treatment in the past. I know you said you have been in substance recovery and treatment there. So acceptance and commitment therapy is a little different than most therapies that I imagine you've encountered, in that we're not trying to avoid painful or uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. We're trying to just kind of detach from them a little bit, not place as much meaning on them, not get bothered by them so often. So that's the goal. Is I'm not trying to get rid of your thoughts and feelings that might be uncomfortable, but maybe just find new meaning and help detach yourself from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I wish there was a magic pill that would take it away, but I guess we can try this style.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So hopefully we can find some different perspective in this type of therapy, if you're willing.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. So one of the first things, kind of the foundation of acceptance and commitment therapy, is a skill called diffusion. So what this means is when we have an uncomfortable or a painful thought, a lot of times we take that as truth, right? We're like, oh, if I'm thinking this, it must be true. And then it creates some pretty uncomfortable emotions and feelings behind that. I'm curious if you've ever had an experience like that where you really attached to a thought you've had.
Yeah, well, I guess the one that's prompted me to come to therapy was when I broke up with my girlfriend. I felt like I was a failure, like I can't maintain a relationship and I'll never maintain a relationship.
I'm a failure.
Yeah.
It's a pretty defeating thought.
Yeah.
It's not a very fun or pleasant one to feel, right? So here's kind of how this works. If I were to tell you, Mark, you're a skier, you'd probably agree with that. You wouldn't be bothered by that, right? But if I said, Mark, you're a failure, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah. Like, kind of feel that way.
You resonate with that, right?
Yeah, more so than telling me that I was a skier.
Yeah. The difference is, well, I mean, there's not a huge difference in those two statements that I said. They're both just words, they're both just thoughts, but you attach a pretty negative meaning to the second one, right?
Yeah.
So one skill I'd like to introduce to you is when you notice yourself having those thoughts, I would like you to try putting the phrase, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure, in front of that, instead of just saying I am a failure and running with it.
Can I write that down?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. What do you think about that skill? Why is that an important piece of detaching yourself from your thoughts?
I guess it would allow me to, well, if I'm having that bad thought and I'm just kind of detaching from it, then I'm not having those negative feelings like come up and feeling horrible.
Yeah, it might distance yourself from that meaning, right?
Yeah.
You're acknowledging that those are just words and not absolute truth.
Yeah.
So I'd love it if that's kind of the foundation you and I can work from
Okay.
throughout the course of therapy, is really trying to identify when you're having those thoughts and distance yourself from them. Does that sound like an okay skill we can work on together?
Yeah. So you said I am having a negative thought. Like I put that in front of it. Is that what you said?
Mhm.
I am having a negative
I
thought.
said, I'm having the thought that
Oh, that's it.
blank, but I think your phrase works as well.
Okay. That's good. Okay.
Okay, let's work on that. And
Okay.
then we'll keep building off of that skill, okay?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Mark, how's your week been?
So yeah, it's been good. Been a good
Yeah,
week. Yeah.
good. What's been going well?
Well, I was doing some of the detaching of my thoughts, and sometimes it worked. Like I could feel that I felt a little bit better when I was just thinking about
Hmm.
saying, I'm having the thought that this is a negative thought about me, and it like helped with the emotion a bit more, like feeling horrible.
Yeah,
So it was a good thing to practice.
good. Yeah, I was going to ask you how that had gone. Can you think of an example from the week where like maybe a thought came up and how that went?
Yeah, so I took a big step forward and went on a dating app program thing,
Wow.
and like I matched with someone and was talking, and then I felt that insecurity, and then I was having these thoughts like, nah, you're a failure, this isn't going to work out. And so then I just
Hmm.
practiced it then, and that allowed me just to remove the feeling and then continue to chat to someone online.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Okay. Well, I wanted to kind of expand on what we talked about last time and talk a little more about the way your mind works and the way it affects your thoughts, and maybe thoughts kind of getting out of control or getting to the point where they're impacting you more. Um, so I just wanted to kind of explain to you a little about the two different parts of your mind.
Okay.
So on one side, you have the thinking self,
Yep.
and that side is responsible for thinking, planning, judging, comparing, creating, visualizing, analyzing, imagining. So a lot of things. Your thinking self does a lot. And then on the other side, you have the observing self,
Yep.
and that's responsible more for attention, awareness, consciousness, noticing, observing, that side of things. So when people refer to your mind, they're usually talking about your thinking self and not your observing self.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to help your thought be less impactful, we want to really work on tuning into that observing self that you have. So if I can give you an example, it would be like if maybe you're back in Australia and you're on the beach and you're watching the sunset. The observing self would be really just paying attention to the colors and maybe the breeze that you feel and the sound of the ocean, those kinds of things. And then if the thinking self kicks in, it's maybe like, oh, I've got to get my camera and take a picture of this. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to miss anything. And then, maybe you see the waves and you start worrying about like that one time I got caught in that current or whatever, like in your mind just kind of starts to like go off on other things and other worries. Yeah, what do you think about those two parts of your mind? Any thoughts on that?
Never really have heard of that before, but it makes sense. Yeah.
So can you think of an example over the last like month or so since your breakup, where you're in a situation and you notice that thinking self is really taking over and your thoughts are kind of starting to spin.
Yeah, most times, like when I'm not around other people and I'm
Mm-hmm.
by myself,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not really a situation though. I know that's what you're asking for, but I feel that like at nighttime and things like that, when I'm by myself, my thoughts just go crazy and start taking over.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a situation, right? Like, so if you were, by yourself at home at night and that thinking self started to kind of take over, you're not telling it to stop. We don't want to tell it to stop. Like we talked about before, it's acceptance, right? So you're not going to stop the chatter. It's going to kind of keep going in your head. But if you let your observing self kick in, you might just start paying attention to what you see in your room, being really mindful in maybe what you're touching, or noticing if you smell something, just letting your thoughts, and maybe you like wave to the other cars as they pass by, but just letting them keep passing instead of like throwing up a stop sign and getting stuck on those.
Okay.
So this week I wanted to just give you an exercise to try that'll help to engage that observing self. So when you find yourself in a situation, maybe at night when you're alone, like we talked about, and that thinking self is kicking up,
Yeah.
I want you to just take 10 slow, deep breaths and really focus on your breathing, focus on your chest and your stomach expanding, and just really pay attention to letting those thoughts just continually pass by, like we talked about, like cars. And if you notice that you start to get stuck on one, to try to unhook yourself by coming back and focusing on your breathing and your breath.
Okay.
Any questions about that exercise?
No, I like that. I'll be willing to try it out.
Good. Yeah. And the more you try it, the more you practice it, like the easier it'll get for you to engage in that observing self. So if you can try and do it once a day, that would be awesome. And then we'll follow up on it next week and see how things are going.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Hi, Mark. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. It's good to be back in therapy.
Good. How did you do with our deep breathing technique that we talked about during our last session?
Yeah, I actually really, really enjoyed it, to be honest. And it was, I think for me, it wasn't necessarily like the breathing. It was more just thinking about the thinking mind and the observing self part of my brain. And so when I would sit to breathe, I would just be more observant of what's around me and more observant of my thoughts, as opposed to just constantly thinking.
Wow.
So it was really good. And I think the analogy that was used, that you explained, like a passing car, just let your thoughts go and just wave at them, was really helpful.
Awesome. That's perfect, because we're going to actually utilize a lot of our observing self today for our session today. Okay. So before we get started on that, we're going to, just to kind of give you a glimpse into what we'll be talking about, we're going to talk about expansion. And expansion is just kind of like it sounds, right? We're going to expand ourselves and make room for our emotions to make their way through our body without pushing them, fighting them, and creating a lot of tension. Does that make a lot of sense for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as mentioned, we're going to start with getting into our observing self. So we're going to use that deep breathing technique together. Are you okay with doing that with me today?
Yeah.
All right. So Mark, I want you to get in a comfortable position. Close your eyes. And I want you to take 10 deep breaths. And I want you to, the intention is going to be on the physical sensations that you experience with each of your breaths. So I want you to inhale slowly until your lungs are full of capacity. And then I want you to exhale until they're fully depleted of air. And while you do this, I want you to concentrate on what that air feels like as it moves in and out of your nose, as it moves into your lungs and expands your rib cage and your stomach, and then back out of your lungs again. And as you do this, I want you to notice the rise and fall of your shoulders and chest, what it feels like to hold the air in for a second, and then slowly release it again. And any detail about the physical experience that you can tune into. And like our brain always does, it's gonna offer you lots of thoughts and lots of, chatter to distract you. But like we talked about, imagining those thoughts being like the cars, outside of our house, just kind of passing through, okay? So now you can go ahead and open your eyes. How are you feeling right now?
Light.
Okay,
Just like
awesome,
relaxed.
good. So now that you're more engaged with your body and less with your head, here's how we're gonna practice expansion. So I want you to go ahead and close your eyes again, and we're gonna do a body scan. And in our body scan, we're gonna notice things from the top of our scalp, scan our body down to our throat, our shoulders, our chest, stomach, all the way down to our toes. And as you do your body scan, I want you to notice the uncomfortable sensations you feel and pick one sensation that you want to focus on. And I want you to observe that sensation objectively. And I want you to get a real clear picture of that sensation. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I just kind of want you to answer them to yourself. So as you think of this sensation, I want you to think of how big the sensation is. Is it still, or is it moving? Is it fast, slow? If it had a color, what color would it be? What texture does it have? Is it bumpy, smooth? Is it on the surface of you, or is it deep down inside of your body? Is it heavy or light? Does it have a cold temperature, a hot temperature? Maybe it's just right. Keeping your eyes closed and keeping that clear picture of your sensation, I want you to breathe again, breathe deeply and slowly. And imagine your breath going in and around that sensation that you have found. And as you do that, I want you to create space around that sensation. And this is where we're going to imagine ourselves expanding to accommodate that feeling. We don't want to put pressure on it. We don't want to squeeze it out and pull ourselves in different direction. We want to expand and allow that feeling to do what it needs to do. You probably are not going to like the feeling. You're going to want it to go away, but it's not about wanting it there. It's about willing for it to be there. Okay, and I want you to come back to me. Go ahead and slowly come back. Open your eyes when you're ready. What did you think of that? How did you feel once you found and located and put a picture to that sensation? How did that feel?
Yeah, it felt really, yeah, you're right. Like I kind of wanted the sensation to go away.
Yeah.
And my thoughts were going, but then as I was doing the breathing and putting a picture and thinking of color and answering those questions, like it just felt okay.
With expansion, I like to think of it like, when we're feeling upset, when we're feeling a lot of pressure and someone wants to hug us, what do we kind of tell them at that time? I need space.
I need to
breathe right now. And it's kind of like our feelings, right? We're like, hey, sadness and depression, get out of here. And our depression's like, oh, no, I need to breathe, man. I need to be able to let this go. Does that make a lot of sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's something I kind of want you to work on until our next session.
Okay.
Making room for your body, breathing that deep using that deep breathing technique, and tell me how that works for you the next time we meet up, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, Mark.
Hey.
Hey, it's good to see you today. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been a good week. Been using some, the breathing exercises and trying different things out that I've been learning here, and it's been really good.
That's wonderful. Has it helped you to kind of detach from some of those unhelpful thoughts?
I would say for the most part, yes. Like I think I was probably after perfection, maybe, that it wasn't going to happen again. But something that you'd mentioned earlier on, like, sometimes you're going to have setbacks, as you're going along the journey, and it's not magic pill that can take everything away. It's just about accepting. So I've tried to have that as I'm observing self and doing the breathing, just accepting that the thoughts are there and just removing my feelings from it. So it's been good.
That's perfect. That's great, because one of your insecurities is that you feel like a failure. So recognizing that you don't have to be perfect at it, but striving to achieve that goal. It's a process, right? It's not like a one and done. You try it one time and you've got it. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. That's really great. So thinking back to the treatment session, we made a couple goals. One of them was that you wanted to isolate less, and another one was that you wanted to feel more like yourself. And we've been working on those. But this session of ACT, we're trying to align our values with our goals, because, I know you've stated that you want to have a more meaningful, fulfilling life, right? And we're able to achieve that when we align our goals to our values. So do you know the difference between what a value is and a goal? Like, what in your mind, what would that be?
A goal is something that is I guess can be achieved or checked off.
Yeah.
And a value is just something that's important to you, but it's not necessarily a goal.
That's kind of like a way of being, right? Like your heart's greatest desire, how you want to treat yourself, how you want to be, how you want to treat other people. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm the happiest, and I feel more fulfilled in my life when I align my actions to my values. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So to kind of help you think about what maybe some of your most important values are, I just want to ask you a couple questions to kind of get those juices flowing, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
So the first question is what is deeply important to you? Like, if you were to name, your top, 2, 3, 4 things.
My education, like my
Okay.
career education aspirations, like that's important to me. Being kind, like being a kind person, which I think encompasses, like, being forgiving, being patient, being understanding, showing empathy, like that kind of kind is a big umbrella.
Yes.
Then my family.
Okay. And your family. So those are the things that are the most important to you.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it. The second question was what sort of person you want to be. And so you said you want to be like kind and patient, forgiving. Are there any other qualities that you strive to emulate or work towards?
Like accountability. That's
Okay.
something that, I kind of pride myself on that, like being accountable, and just of the decisions that I make or what my actions may cause other people.
Okay. I think that's great, because a lot of people don't want to take that accountability. They want to blame other people. And like you've probably realized, when we do that, it stifles our growth. We're not able to grow and progress because it's not our fault, right? But the fact that you recognize that taking accountability for your choices allows you to grow and develop. So I think that's really wonderful. So coming to the third question, what sort of relationships do you want to build? In your intake and through these last sessions, we've talked about, your heartbreak over the breakup of your girlfriend. So maybe thinking about some things that went well, things that didn't. What sorts of things are important to you in relationships?
Trust.
Okay.
Meaningful connections, I think, is important. Communication. Yeah, they're the things that I look for.
Yeah. I think without trust, you don't really have a relationship, right? Like honesty and being committed is super important. So there's a lot of things that go into creating values and goals, and our time is a little bit short today, but if we were to take some of those things that are really important to you and maybe create, put it into action, make your goals align with your values, what sort of a goal do you think that you could incorporate into maybe a smaller goal? Either like one of your goals that you have to feel more like yourself or to be isolated less. Would you want to choose one of those, and maybe we could choose one small goal?
Yeah, I think doing the feeling less isolated, or being isolated, making a goal from that, maybe just to reach out to some of my friends and plan activities would be a goal to achieve that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a great goal. And in the coming session, we can kind of flesh that out a little bit and maybe come up with some parameters where you can incorporate some of your values in that, of what kind of people you want to hang out with that will help you be your best self and enable you to be able to have more of those social interactions that you are striving for.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Thanks for coming in today, Mark.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. How are
Hey,
you today?
yeah, doing good. How are you?
Good, doing pretty good. I can't believe this is our last session together.
I know, right? It's been a bit of a journey.
It has been. You've done some great work.
Oh, thanks. I feel good. I feel I've learned a lot of skills, and working with a great therapist has been awesome. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you. How are you feeling about your progress?
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how much my thoughts were affecting me, and not just the thought, but I guess the meaning and the emotion that I would attach to those thoughts, and how it like became internalized like a belief. And just challenging those thoughts, like instead of I'm a failure, it's like I'm having a negative thought that I'm a failure, and it kind of helped to detach a little bit, and then using the breathing, and it's all this stuff that we're talking about has been really good. And it was nice last week to talk about goals and values, and I thought a lot about that during the week, and the difference between them, and yeah, it's been good.
Oh my gosh, that is so good to hear. And you really just summed up like so much of what we've gone over, and it's like so good to hear that you've been able to use these tools in your everyday life.
Yeah.
You must be proud of yourself.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so awesome. What do you feel is the benefit from coming to therapy and from learning all of these like tools that you can take with you?
The benefit would be like, so obviously the tools and the coping stuff has been good, like beneficial, but I really think it's understanding my thoughts and feelings and being okay with them. And even if it's uncomfortable, like I think in the second or third session, you told me, don't stop, put a stop sign up, stop, like go away, or go away depressive symptoms, or just allow it to be there, allow it to feel it. And then, just that I think is the most important thing, because you never know when these thoughts, feelings are going to happen, and you don't know how it's going to negatively impact you. So learning about that and applying some of those coping skills, has been really helpful. And I guess my behavior of not wanting, being isolated and not wanting to date again and everything like that, I'm able to actually do these things again.
Yeah. And just realizing like sometimes we have uncomfortable thoughts, right? But they're just a thought, and being able to kind of sit with those thoughts can be so beneficial. And I can just see the progress you've made from our first session together until now. And that's so great. What are your plans for like the rest of the week? Are you able to utilize these skills in your daily life?
Yeah, so I'm actually going on some dates,
Mhm.
which has been nice to like reconnect with people, and um not feeling as isolated,
Mm.
which has been good. I've been skiing a lot.
Mm.
I've been making time to go and do that because that's something that I missed doing.
Yeah.
Um, that's about it, really. Just those two
Mhm.
things. I know that another thing that I'll bring up that's been beneficial for me too with treatment is the urges like to use drugs.
Mm.
Like they're pretty much gone. Like I don't think about them anymore. I don't think about having to go back to use them
Mm.
to cope with what the breakup and everything. So yeah, that's been probably another massive highlight.
Yeah, yeah. If you like, what could you take away? Like, what would you say is the therapeutic value that you've been able to take away from our time together?
Therapeutic value. Oh, that's a cool buzzword. um, I don't know. I think maybe I already touched on it, but I think just being comfortable with positive and negative thoughts and emotions. Just
Mm-hmm.
being comfortable in sitting in it.
Yeah.
I think that's the value for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome, Mark. I'm really proud of you. So you've done
Thanks.
some great work.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're about out of time for today, but it's been such a pleasure working with you. And
Thank you.
just remember all these tools that we went over, like the diffusing the thoughts and thinking self versus observing self and expansion and values versus goals. And it yeah, it sounds like you're doing really well. So good luck.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we're
you.
always here. We're always here. Sometimes we need a little checkup, right? Kind of like a car.
Fine tuning. Yeah.
Sometimes you need to get tuned up. So
Yeah. Well, I'll remember that and reach out if I need anything. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you so much, Mark.
No
Have a good
worries.
day. Okay.